When you have a fantasy and somebody supports your fantasy, you can be, oh, grateful, grateful, grateful. But when all of a sudden you see the order of things, the balance of things, now you have a true grace. When I was 4 years old, my mother was putting me to bed. And she said, son, make sure you count your blessings and think about what you're grateful for. Because those that are grateful for what they have, they receive more to be grateful for. Later on in my life, before my mom passed away, I wrote a book called Count Your Blessings, The Healing Power of Gratitude and Love. I really believe that gratitude and love are the greatest healers and have the ability to transform people's lives. So I'd like to take a moment to talk about gratitude and how to train your brain to experience more gratitude and to relate to that. So if you have something to write with and write on, that would be fantastic. First, I want to say that there's two types of gratitude. There's a superficial gratitude when somebody does something that supports your values and you say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's easy to be grateful superficially when you feel that we're being supported. This is what I call an amygdala-driven gratitude. It's a subcortical area of the brain that is being supported. It's like in the subcortical area of the brain, this amygdala, this limbic portion of the brain is involved in survival. And so it wants to seek food, prey, and wants to avoid predator. It wants to eat to sustain itself. It doesn't want to get eaten to annihilate itself. So when you see prey, it's easy to be grateful because you sustain. So this is a superficial gratitude. It's an amygdala-based gratitude that when you get what you want. And then there's a deeper gratitude where you see the pairs of opposites that occur in life. And you see the hidden order in the apparent chaos. And you're able to simultaneously see the pairs of opposites in people. Let me put another context to it. If you meet somebody, they're going to do at times things that support your values, and you're going to be probably receptive and open and kind to them back. And they're going to also do times going to do things that challenge your values, and you're going to close down and be more resistant to them. And so the superficial gratitude is when they do things that support you, thank you. And when the other side comes that you don't want, that challenges you, you don't say thank you. You might say another word. But when you can actually see simultaneously both of their behaviors and have a realistic expectation that they're going to have both in life, they're not always going to be supportive. They're not always going to be nice and kind and sweet and positive. They're also going to have the challenging side. When you can see that they're both there, they're simultaneously there, and you can expect to have both, and you have a realistic expectation, not a fantasy of one side, but embrace both sides. Simultaneously, if you have a perfectly balanced mind and you see them simultaneously, there's a deeper gratitude, a grace, where now your expectation matches the way life really is. It's not just supporting you, which makes you kind of juvenilely dependent on that which supports you, but it's actually an embracing of both sides of life. Maximum growth and development occurs at the border of support and challenge. And so when you're getting support without challenge, you get the superficial gratitude, but when you get the support and challenge simultaneously equal, you get a deep gratitude because you realize that it's helping you become authentic. Now, this is awakened, and this part of the brain is the medial prefrontal cortex, the forebrain, the executive center. It's also called sometimes the gratitude center because it allows you to see objectively the balance of opposites simultaneously. Wilhelm Wundt, the father of experimental psychology, talked about simultaneous contrast versus sequential ones. When you're able to see both sides simultaneously, embrace both sides of an individual or an experience, or a goal, and have a true objective, not a fantasy. When you have a fantasy and somebody supports your fantasy, you can be, oh, grateful, grateful, grateful. But when all of a sudden you see the order of things, the balance of things, now you have a true grace, a true gratitude, a deep gratitude. Because now you realize that the thing that's challenging you is actually serving you also. So instead of avoiding the challenge and seeking the support, you're embracing support and challenge in the pursuit of something deeply meaningful, the mean between the pairs of opposites. And you embrace both of them, and you have now gratitude. And the blood glucose oxygen goes into the forebrain, activates the executive center, this medial prefrontal cortex, and allows you to self-govern your behavior. You enter into what is called systems two thinking, where you're processing things and acting before you react. You think before you react. Where when you get superficial gratitude, the thing that supports your values like that, you react before you think, and you just impulsively respond. When you're externally run by this impulse, it's not the same as when you're actually deeply present with something that's balanced. Most people in the study of physics, and particularly thermodynamics, have shown that when you're missing information, you have entropy, when you have and disorder, and when you have all the information, you have order. So when the second you see simultaneously both things, and you're not missing part of it, you're seeing both, you have order, and you see the hidden order in things. And this is a perfection, a magnificence, and a magnificent place where you're really graced and grateful for life. I've been teaching the Breakthrough Experience program, my signature program, for many years now, 3.5 decades. And I help people go from the superficial gratitude to the deep gratitude, from going from their amygdala into their executive center. They're going along, and when they're infatuated with somebody, and if somebody supports their values, they like them and put them on a pedestal. When they challenge them and they resent the person, they put them in a pit. And they're trying to avoid this one and seek this one. And the more they try to avoid this one and seek this one, the more they seek this one, where they become juvenilely dependent. They attract the opposite, which is forcing them to become precociously independent. And the two together, when they're balanced and they see the individual balanced, they're grateful, graced. I've taken hundreds of thousands of people through a method, the Demartini method, to help them see that state where they see grace. And so they're not trying to avoid something and seek something. They're embracing both sides simultaneously. And this part of the brain is where we have the most governance. This is where we have the most mastery. This is where we have the most profound objective. And we're basically embracing life. So I believe that there's two forms of gratitude. The superficial one, which anybody can have. An animal smiles when it gets what it wants and barks when it doesn't. Anybody can be the animal. But it takes the human, the difference with our intuition, to be able to embrace and simultaneously see both sides and see the hidden order in the experience, and to really have a real gratitude in the form of grace. And this grace is where you're not trying to impose your ideals onto society. You're embracing as it is. Now, what's interesting is when people go along and they're infatuated in their amygdala and they're resentful to things, they're run from the external world. Anything you infatuate with occupies space and time in your mind and runs you. Anything you resent occupies space and time in your mind and runs you. So when you're in this superficial gratitude, you're actually creating an addiction, kind of a thing like, I want to go back to that. I want to get that impulse back. And it can become an addictive dopamine stimulator. And then when we have this thing that challenges, we have an avoidance instinct. So we're basically trying to avoid that which is unavoidable and seek that which is unavailable, instead of embracing what is as it is, which is present, and seeing what's really there and being grateful for that. And that's the one that I believe that my mom was trying to get me to understand, that even in the challenges, there's something to be grateful for. Sometimes we have an event in our life that we think is terrible, and then a day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years later, we look back at it and we go, wow, I'm so grateful that happened. I didn't see it initially. I didn't see the yin and the yang. I didn't see the other side of the equation. That's why I teach people the breakthrough experience and the Demartini method, because it asks questions to make you conscious of both sides simultaneously. When you're elated by something and infatuated with something, it's asking what are the downsides. And if you're resenting something and despising something, what are the upsides? And allows you to see both sides simultaneously. And when I take people through the method and I get them to complete perfect balance simultaneously, tears come out of their eyes. Gratitude occurs. They feel love for the experience of the individual. They feel certain. They feel present. They feel inspired. And they realize that what's happened is there's no mistakes. It's a magnificence there. And they're enthused about what they can do with what that experience is. And that is way more profound than the superficial gratitude. Like I said, any animal, any human can have the superficial gratitude when people support the person. But the question is can you have the gratitude for when you have the other side? And can you have the gratitude when you can see both sides? In my experience, after taking 100 and something thousand people through a methodology, I've demonstrated repeatedly, consistently, that if I ask the right questions, help you see both sides of things, you can have a deep gratitude. And that deep gratitude is way more profound. So we store all of our polarized perceptions in our subconscious mind, our amygdala and hippocampus region, and our subcortical area of our brain. And we store those for survival mechanisms to make sure that we don't get eaten and to make sure we, get prey. But that's survival. And I don't know if you want to live in survival all your life or you want to live in thrival. But when you're in your executive center and you embrace both sides, you're not frightened by something or fantasizing about something. You're present with everything. And in the process of doing it, you're liberated from the emotional vicissitudes of the charged state, and you're actually into a neutral state where you can see both sides simultaneously and feel grateful. That form of gratitude, that form of grace, is way more profound and activates, as I said, the executive center, but I call that the superconscious mind. The superconscious mind stores all deep grace, where you see the hidden order and the apparent chaos, and you're fully informed, you're mindful, and you see both sides. And the subconscious mind stores all the impolarized ones. The subconscious mind takes no effort, takes no training. The superconscious mind takes the ability to listen to your intuition, which is constantly whispering what you're unconscious of, to try to make you fully conscious and see both sides of an event simultaneously. And that's the one that allows you to have a sustainable relationship. If you're in a relationship and you're addicted to the idea that you want them to support you, not challenge you, want them to be nice, not mean, kind, not cruel, positive, not negative, peaceful, not wrathful, you have a fantasy about who they're going to be. And when they do that, you've got the superficial gratitude. When they don't and they show the other side, which is inevitable, then you're going to go, well, I'm now withdrawn. So this relationship's not working for me. And you're impulsively seeking the fantasy and avoiding the pain instinctually. But the second you embrace both sides simultaneously, you can now have a loving relationship. To love somebody is to embrace both sides. They want to be loved for who they are, and they're not one-sided. I'm not one-sided. I'm both-sided. You support my values, I can be nice as a pussycat. You challenge my values, I can be mean as a tiger, and so is all the other people in the world. So don't expect to live fulfilled with a superficial form of gratitude. Go deeper. Learn to ask the questions that allow you to see both sides simultaneously. Pursue with realistic expectations the pairs of opposites simultaneously. That's what I teach people in the breakthrough experience. How to break through the fantasies. Most people live with fantasies about how they want their life, and life becomes a nightmare because it's not matching their fantasy. They have unrealistic expectations and delusions about how life's supposed to be. And then when it doesn't match that, they're angry and they self-depreciate. And then they want to blame. But when you automatically go in there and have a realistic expectation that life's going to have both sides, and you see both sides, and you know that both are necessary. Again, if somebody supports you, you become juvenilely dependent on them. Somebody challenges you, become precociously independent. When you get both of them, you get maximum growth and development. When you finally realize that both of those are necessary in your life, and you realize that when you had an overprotective mama, you might have an aggressive father. The pair of opposites, what was love, not the idea that one liked me and one didn't like me. They're both necessary. When you realize that and you have the appreciation for both of those at the same time, then really nothing can throw you off, because that's what life offers you, a pair of opposites. As Heraclitus said in 2,500 years ago almost, he said that there's a unity of all opposites. No matter what you perceive, your brain perceives both simultaneously. I started studying comparative perceptions back when I was in my 20s, and I realized that all perceptions are contrast. And in the Demartini method, in the breakthrough experience, there's a column that I do and a series of questions I ask that makes people aware that when somebody's challenging you, who's supporting you? When somebody's supporting you, who's challenging you? To help you see that both are there simultaneously, but you, with your subjective bias, filtered somebody out and didn't see but one side, and then got emotionally seeking or avoiding, and then the world outside you ran you, instead of actually being present and seeing both sides simultaneously, so you run you. When you see both sides, you run yourself. That's why I said when the voice and the vision on the inside is louder than all opinions on the outside, you master your life. When you're poised and present and purposeful and patient and prioritized and powerful and focused, embracing both sides, you have a true gratitude that allows you to do something extraordinary with your life. But if not, you're going to be having this vacillating emotional state where you're addicted and seeking only support. And the more you're addicted to praise and support, the more you are wounded by challenge and criticism. And so that's why I say the superficial gratitude anybody can have. And their life is vacillating and bipolar in the process. But true gratitude, true grace, if you will, is the balance. You have reciprocal muscles. You have an agonist and an antagonist. If you have biceps are contracting, your triceps are shut off. There's a reciprocal inhibition in your brain that automatically does that, and in your nervous system. And what's interesting is if they're working in perfect unison and working together simultaneously, both sides, you have graceful movement. So grace is a kinesthetic and a muscular response to a balanced perspective on life. But if you have a completely infatuation or a complete resentment, you can cause trepidation in the muscles and get tensions, and these agonists and antagonists don't work in sync. And so then you have what is called disgrace. So grace is actually a physiological motor response to a perfectly balanced and two-sided state simultaneously. So that's why I said there's true gratitude or grace, and there's superficial gratitude. And the second we give ourselves permission to embrace both sides of life synchronously, simultaneously, in equilibrium, we are not reactive, we're proactive. We're not in our amygdala and our subconscious, we're in our superconscious. And we give ourselves permission to do way more profound things in life. And we don't live in philias and phobias and the fear of loss of things we seek and the fear of gain of things we are avoiding. We're neutral, we're balanced, we're objective. We're not living in philias and phobias, we're present. And this is where our power is. So I just want to take a few moments to talk about your brain and how your brain can help you with a greater state of gratitude, and how the Demartini method and what I describe as the breakthrough experience, which I've been training people for 3.5 decades on how to do that. So if you want a superficial gratitude, it doesn't take any effort. Anybody can have it, even animals have it. If you want to differentiate yourself from the animals, you want to learn the art of maximizing your intuitive aspects to be able to see both sides simultaneously. So you're not reactive, you're proactive. You're not functioning from the subconscious, you're working from the superconscious, and you're not doing something superficial in life, you're doing something deeply meaningful. So that's the message today. I look forward to seeing you at either the breakthrough experience, and definitely want to learn the Demartini method on how to do it, because then nothing on the outside distracts you. The vision and voice on the inside guides you. So I look forward to our next week presentation, webinar, and just know that there's a deeper gratitude you have access to in your life, and your brain is waiting for you. Your forebrain, foresight, is waiting for you to experience it. I look forward to seeing you at Breakthrough, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.